The relative income hypothesis, RIH, primarily developed by James Dusenberry in 1949, is a theory of consumer behavior that challenged the simple Keynesian consumption function. Unlike Keynes, who focused on absolute income, Dusenberry argued that an individual's consumption and saving decisions are influenced not just by their own absolute income, but also by their income relative to others in their social group or community, and by their past peak income. The RIH has two main components. 1. The demonstration effect, or keeping up with the Joneses effect. This component states that an individual's consumption patterns are influenced by the consumption levels of others, particularly those in higher income brackets or social circles. People compare themselves to their peers or those they aspire to be like, and this social comparison creates a desire to maintain or emulate the consumption standards of these reference groups. Implication: if your neighbor buys a new car or goes on an expensive vacation, you might feel pressured to do the same, even if your absolute income hasn't significantly increased. This demonstration effect explains why lower-income individuals in a wealthier community might have a higher average propensity to consume, APC, and save less, as they try to keep up with the perceived standard of living around them. Conversely, wealthier individuals might feel less pressure to consume beyond a certain point, leading to a higher saving rate. Reconciliation with cross-sectional data. This effect helps explain the cross-sectional empirical observation that at any given point in time, richer households tend to save a larger proportion of their income than poorer households, i.e., APC falls as income rises in cross-section. Poor households are constantly exposed to the consumption patterns of richer households, putting pressure on them to consume more. 2. The Ratchet effect, or past peak income hypothesis. This component suggests that consumption habits are sticky and tend to be irreversible downwards. Once a certain standard of living, and thus consumption level, has been attained, it is difficult for individuals to reduce that level, even if their income falls. People are reluctant to cut back on their consumption habits, and instead, they might draw down savings or borrow to maintain their previous consumption level when income declines. Implication: when income rises, consumption increases relatively sharply. However, if income then falls, consumption falls much more slowly and less proportionally than the income drop. This creates a ratchet effect, where consumption ratchets up with rising income, but resists falling back down with declining income. Reconciliation with time series data. This effect helps explain why, over long periods, time series data, the aggregate APC tends to remain relatively stable, even as aggregate income grows. When the economy is growing, incomes generally rise, and consumption ratchets up. During recessions, consumption doesn't fall as much as income, supporting the stability of the long-run APC. If a society experiences continuous income growth, the past peak income effectively becomes the previous period's income, and the consumption function shifts upwards over time, maintaining a relatively constant APC. Key contributions and reconciliation of puzzles. The relative income hypothesis was crucial in addressing two empirical puzzles that the simple Keynesian consumption function struggled to explain. Cross-sectional versus time series data. Keynes' theory predicted that the APC would fall as income rises, implying a declining APC over time as economies grow. However, long-run time series data, e.g., Kuznets' findings, showed a relatively constant APC. Dusenberry's RIH, with its demonstration effect, explaining cross-sectional variations in APC, and Ratchet effect, explaining the stability of the long-run APC, provided a more comprehensive explanation. Criticisms and limitations. While innovative, the RIH also has its limitations. Vague reference group. The theory doesn't precisely define the reference group individuals compare themselves to, making it difficult to test empirically in some contexts. Rationality assumption. While more nuanced than Keynes, it still doesn't fully embrace the forward-looking, intertemporal optimization assumptions found in permanent income hypothesis, PIH, and life cycle hypothesis, LCH. Mechanism of comparison. it's hard to precisely quantify how the demonstration effect translates into specific consumption decisions. Focus on consumption over saving. While it explains how social comparisons affect consumption, it doesn't offer as clear a framework for optimal saving decisions over a lifetime as the LCH or PIH. Conclusion. The relative income hypothesis marked an important step forward in consumption theory by introducing sociological and psychological factors into economic models. It highlighted that consumer behavior is not solely an individualistic decision based on absolute income, but is significantly influenced by social comparisons and past habits. It served as a bridge between the simpler Keynesian model and the more sophisticated intertemporal consumption theories, LCH and PIH, that followed.